Great. Thank you, Dr. Chan, and thanks to everyone who makes our programming possible. So now it's my honor to ask NANETS Secretary Thor Hofdannerson, former board member and Symposium Planning Chair, Dr. Michael Sulin, as well as Diversity and Membership Committee Chair and GI Task Force Chair, Dr. Bryson Katona, to join me in honoring this year's Lifetime Achievement Award. So Thor, you can take it from here.
Yeah, hello, Thor Hofdannerson here. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce the next two speakers here to honor Dr. David Metz for his lifetime achievement. So without further ado, I will invite Dr. Michael Sulin and Dr. Bryson Katona to do that. So take it away.
All right, well, great. Thank you so much for the introduction. I guess we can advance a couple slides to our first one here. One more. There we go. Great. Well, it's really such a great honor for myself and for Michael Sulin to present this 2021 NANETS Lifetime Achievement Award to David Metz. So for those who may not know me, my name is Bryson Katona, and I'm a gastroenterologist at Penn. And Mike, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Hi, I'm Michael Sulin. I'm an interventional oncologist at Penn and worked with David for about 30 years.
Yeah, and the two of us are really fortunate enough to have known and worked with David for many years at Penn. And so when Mike and I were first asked to help with this presentation to honor Dr. Metz, really the first thing the two of us immediately agreed upon is that we didn't want this to be a standard run-of-the-mill boring presentation. And so for anybody who knows David, you know he's definitely not a boring guy. So while we definitely could have gone through and his, Dr. Metz's entire CV, we won't do that. But trust me, his CV is long. It's actually crazy long. And if we went through that in 8 minutes, we would really only be able to scratch the surface. So instead, we're going to try to make this a bit entertaining, and given the hour of the evening, and we're also going to try to rely on the words of many people David has worked with over the years, including many of his colleagues and mentees, to really paint a great picture of what a fantastic person David is. So to get started here, we'll go through and ask the most important question first, and that is, with this Lifetime Achievement Award, are we officially putting David out to pasture? Well, for anyone who knows and has worked with David, the answer to that question is emphatically no. However, certainly since retirement, some things have definitely changed for him. He's definitely found much better ways to spend some of his time enjoying more of the good parts of life as he's living near the beach in Southern California. But just to give you a little bit of background on David, he actually grew up in South Africa and did his medical training there. As you can see here, he actually spent some time in the South African Infantry Corps as well. In addition to doing all of his medical training in South Africa, as you can see, he was also clearly demonstrated his ability to grow an incredibly impressive beard and mustache that I still remain jealous of to this day. After South Africa, he then came across the Atlantic and came to the United States, ending up in Philadelphia for his residency, where he did his internal medicine residency at Albert Einstein, and then subsequently went on to do his fellowship down at Georgetown. And you can see over here, this is from his fellowship class down at Georgetown. Following that, he then went to the NIH from 1991 to 1993. And during that time, he worked with Bob Jensen there. And that was when he really started to develop his love for neuroendocrine tumors. So one of his co-fellows, actually, while he was at Georgetown, and probably his longest longest colleague that he's had, was actually Greg Ginsberg, who you see over here on the left, and at a much younger age here in this fellowship picture. And Greg and David have been colleagues initially at Georgetown, but then basically during their entire tenures at Penn, so for over 30 years together. And Greg had some very nice things to say about David, saying that he became the master clinician, investigator, and educator that he is through a career-long dedication to evidence-based medicine. He further went on to say he did all this with boundless energy and passion for knowledge and patient well-being, and his likes may not be seen again among our ranks. And then Bob Jensen, of course, had some fantastic things to say about David as well. And David actually presented the Lifetime Achievement Award to Bob just a couple years ago. And he said, David really is an outstanding choice for the Lifetime Achievement Award. He has been an outstanding clinician and researcher, has been a superb mentor and role model, and has established an excellent neuroendocrine tumor unit. And he went on to further say that David has done all of this with integrity, fairness, and intelligence. So I'll turn it over to Mike Sulin for the second half of the slides here.
All right, thanks, Bryson. And maybe you can do keep slide control for me. So David came to Penn in 1993, just a couple years after I did, and rose through the ranks, become a full professor by about 2003, which is pretty fast for Penn, I have to say. And he helped found the Neuroendocrine Tumor Board as a sort of interesting entity in that our cancer tumor board was founded by a nephrologist and a gastroenterologist, which just goes to show how multidisciplinary our field is in neuroendocrinology. Bonnie Bennett was the program coordinator for all this time, and has worked with him and all the rest of us incredibly closely. And so she had very nice things to say about him. He was a great admirer and occasional exasperator of a dear doctor. So next. So then David had many roles. We all know him as a neuroendocrinologist, as he likes to say, but in fact, he ran the GI physiology lab. He directed the acid peptic disorders program. He directed the swallowing disorders program, became associate chief of clinical affairs in the division, in addition to being co-director of the neuroendocrine tumor program. And his co-director was Debbie Cohen, one of our nephrologists, who was a major interest in parapheo. And they worked together really for about 20 years to construct the incredible neuroendocrine program. And her comment was, when he retired from Penn, we needed to hire 2 physicians to replace him because his patient load was so large. Next. Oh, go back one. So then David became a member of NANETS in 2009, and in 2 years was on the board of directors, which is just so typical of David. He just leaps in and just takes charge wherever he is. And then he spent 10 years on the board of directors in many roles, arising eventually become emeritus chair in 2019. But of course, he can't let go. So even after he finished his term on the board, he then formed the GI interest group within NANETS in 2021. So he's still part of us. Academic output was insane, as Bryson alluded to. I mean, his CV is enormous, over 500 lectures and over 250 publications. He's had many awards, including from the American Gastroenterological Association. At Penn, he received our Lewis During Outstanding Clinical Specialist Award, which I was one of the people who was very proud to nominate him for. And I won't read you the whole quotation, but I'll just finish up by saying, his piercing intelligence, humility, steadfast devotion to advancing medicine and improving patient care make the world a better place tomorrow than it is today. And that is David. Next. So we had lots of quotes from many mentees, which again, I won't read in detail, but I mean, some of the taglines are hilarious. So for instance, Brian Riff, one of our former fellows, commented that, David would give him a huge to-do list of a project to work on and then have it schedule the next meeting for 6 hours later to discuss how much progress he had made that day on the project. Shreya Kumar commented that on the notoriously busy GI service at Penn, David, by comparison, made the Tasmanian devil seem slow. Of course, I don't think there are any Tasmanian devils in South Africa. I think they're actually from Tasmania, but it's a good analogy for David. Next. Bryson also had many laudatory things to say about him. David's truly great leader, clinician, researcher, mentor, and friend, which I think many of us would agree. And another comment from Nadeem Mahmood. He was the only mentor I had who insists on printing out a manuscript and then providing critiques handwritten in pen and delivering it back to your mailbox the same day. So that's David. Next. David is a true family man. He's pictured here with his beautiful wife, Cindy, and his kids, Zoe and Tyler. in their beautiful location in Southern California now. Next. And then we'll go on to some things. I'm going to turn it back to Bryson. Some things you don't know about David Metz.
All right, so just a few last things here, and the first thing that we'll let me get this there. There we go. All right, so you may not know, but David really is the embodiment of a lifelong learner. As many have seen at NANETS meetings over the years, he's always one of the most, if not the single most engaged person throughout the entire meeting. And seeing him up at the microphone, as you can see here in the middle, always meant that an incredibly intuitive question was undoubtedly coming. However, David has been caught before trying to actually learn from himself. And although this picture is small, this was actually in our endoscopy unit when we caught David watching one of his own lectures, undoubtedly trying to learn from his good teaching points.
He's also an incredible Facebook and social media star. I want to particularly point out the bottom right image with from Facebook Live, where someone has stamped hearts and thumbs ups all over his portrait there.
And then finally, David is still the only gastroenterologist who I've ever known who's actually appeared in an issue of GQ magazine. And yes, this photo was extremely difficult for us to dig up, but there he is in 1995 in GQ. But really, all kidding aside, David is an absolutely phenomenal physician, a fantastic researcher, a great advocate for his patients, an unbelievable mentor, a great friend, and overall just an absolutely incredible person. And David, you're really so deserving of this incredible award. And I'm just so happy for you. Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations, David.
I guess we can't clap in person, but we can kind of do
Thank you.
Zoom clap.
Well, thank you guys very, very much. I'm not sure, are you hearing me?
Yes.
Great. Well, I'm embarrassed for a variety of reasons. But it's nice to see the old me. I wish I was still the old me, but anyway, I don't really feel truly worthy of receiving this. I'm looking at the people who've received this honor before me, who are all giant neuroendocrinologists. But I feel very humbled and honored, and particularly because it's from NANETS, which is really, I think, an organization that represents everything that I tried to do during my career. So it's choice of subspecialty. It's a multidisciplinary professional organization. It's truly colleagues. I've listened to the whole presentation today, and it's really wonderful to see how this organization has grown so beautifully. It's team-oriented. And most important, I think NANETS really does provide true value. Value to the physicians who are members, value to our patients, value to our supporters, whether they the nonprofit organizations, the pharma organizations, our relationship with the journals, spreading knowledge, providing grants, doing papers. This is what we all really want to do. So I'm very, very proud to be a member of NANETS and to have watched today's presentations. It really is wonderful to see how, as a group, we have all advanced this organization. So how did I get into this? Well, I really started off as an upper GI academic gastrointestinal endoscopist. I certainly trained at the NIH and got involved in a rare neuroendocrine tumor, the ZE syndrome, and noticed that general medicine overlapping with endocrinology, genetics, surgery, all the other subspecialties that make for neuroendocrinology that just fitted for me as the perfect place to be. So NANETS had already started. I was not one of the founding members, and that was in Bermuda about 14, 15 years ago. Originally started with some very dedicated clinicians who we certainly respect for having gone all this way to make our group begin. Carrie Brentrow, who was the executive director and started the organization, contacted me, I think in the interests of getting more multidisciplinary involvement in this organization. And I remember back to those days when Carrie was the ED, Josh Mailman, as well as being the best patient advocate in the world, was our IT expert. And we really produced a nice annual meeting that needed to change with time. The organization grew. I worked with Matt Kulke and James Yao prior to myself ascending to presidency, working with Emily Bergsland, Jim Howe. I remember those days when, as Emily mentioned earlier, we were joined at the hip. We went through some tough times, but I think our program and our organization has really benefited. Now we have tremendous leadership with John Strasberg and Pam Coons. Thor, you've done a great job, and thank you for this presentation today. I do want to recognize Bill Goh, who is a founding board member and supported us with our prior journal association with Pancreas, which was tremendous. And I look forward to our new association with ERC. I think the communications that come out of the NETS organization are very, very helpful nationally and internationally. It's been a pleasure to meet all the committee members, work with them. And I think I would be completely remiss if I didn't mention much about ADG and Kathy. And during those early days when we got started as a growing up organization, as a true non-profit organization for clinicians, I think ADG and all their help were tremendous in making things move forward. And I just watched what's happened with today's presentations and today's meeting and our annual meetings. We really are indebted to you, Kathy, ADG, and all your help. So the organization right now, I think, is doing spectacularly. It's lovely to see the new committees, the mentorship committee, the guidelines committees are doing wonderful work. Our association with ERC and the symposium, the diversity committee has really changed the whole movement. I think that's fantastic and is really in the forefront of where organizations are going in America. And obviously our farmer support has been spectacular, and thanks for that, as well as our relationship with all the various nonprofits. So I'm really very honored to accept this as hopefully somebody who helped along the way to make NANETS what it is today. And I think we have a long way to go. From a personal point of view, though, I would like to just recognize a few people. Sol Epstein was an endocrinologist who was important in bringing me to the United States and setting me up with my first job. I actually published papers with him ultimately, so it was a pleasure to work with him for many years until his passing. Gary Levine was a gastroenterologist at the University of Pennsylvania who subsequently went to Einstein and set up our training group in the beginning when there were 8 residents in our program who wanted to be gastroenterologists. He set up a club which we called the TMTGTE Club. There's more to gastroenterology than endoscopy. And hopefully I did live that along my ways. I moved to Penn, as you know. The GI division was a phenomenal home. I really want to thank all the members of that division, as well as all my collaborators at the University of Pennsylvania, because it was truly a multidisciplinary program that we all put together. And you've heard from Debbie and Bryson and Mike Sulin. Julie Starr was a coordinator, research coordinator, without whom I wouldn't have published any papers. Bonnie Bennett was the best nurse you could ever hope for in the whole world. Our patients were wonderful. We had great fellows, as you've heard from today. I'm humbled to hear their comments. Anil Rustki was the chair of our division for many, many years, and I would like to thank him specifically for allowing me to do my own thing with the world of neuroendocrinology. He really supported me all the way and allowed it to be a real living part of the GI division. And it continues today as part of the program at NETS. The NANETS leadership, of course, all of you have been fantastic. I'm really looking forward to the new group. I see we've got John leading the bunch with Pam, Thor, Jen Chan, and Emily holding all things together in the emeritus position. I'm sure that Jim Howe is looking forward to relinquishing that spot. I know the nominating committee is a tough place to be. Also want to thank the non-NANETS other organizations in the NET community with whom I've worked, from NetRF, HNF, the various alliances, NCAN, CCF, Amen, the support groups, etc. And finally, without boring you guys too much, I'd like to thank my wife, Queenie, who's sitting here listening to this, and my kids, who all made it possible for me to work like a dog. Now that I've stopped working like a dog, I really want to commend all of you who are still putting in those hours. It's something we need, and I'm proud that others are taking up the leadership. So thank you so much. I'm very humbled. I'm a little embarrassed. I don't think I deserve it, but it's something I will graciously accept. And thanks for your time.